Penguin fans, need to sell a home or buy one? Go with the top producing team in the nation, the Amy Wenger team with eXp Realty. Serving Northeast Ohio for 28 years, experience real estate that achieves your goals and exceeds your expectations. Call today and tell them you subscribe to the Penguin Nation Fans podcast, and they will ensure that you are treated like family. Call 330-681-6090 or visit amysguarantee.com. Go Gwins. All right, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Penguin Nation Fans podcast. As always, I am your host, Gino Leone. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Ytown Nation, and don't forget to check out my written work over on Redshirt Sports Today. I'm giving you guys my first game preview of the 2026 campaign. Week 0 is here. We finally get college football back. We got to enjoy one last relaxing weekend before things get back into full swing, into full gear. And there's just an absolutely loaded slate of FCS football games on Thursday night. I'm super pumped. And to open the 2026 season, we get none other than your Youngstown State University Penguins taking on Mercyhurst on Thursday, August 27th. And this is a rematch from last season's opener when YSU defeated the Lakers 24-15. I think YSU fans remember that. A lot of YSU fans started to panic. They started to overreact. They started to think about the 2024 season and how frustrating of a year that was. And they thought maybe that translated into 2025. Well, it was week 1. It was the first week of the season. We came out sluggish. This season, we meet in what is called week 0. And I'm super excited to bring you guys another full season of coverage and really dive into this YSU matchup against Mercyhurst. So again, we know the expectations surrounding this Youngstown State team entering the season. This is a big time year. Whenever you return the best player in the FCS, it's going to increase the expectations of your team. And on top of that, we return a ton of experience surrounding Bo Brungard. It's not just him. It's our offensive line. It's our number 1 running back in Jaden Gilbert. And it's a defensive front and a front 7 as a whole that we think has the ceiling to compete for a Missouri Valley Football Conference title and potentially make a run. What does Mercyhurst need to do to come into the Ice Castle and be competitive? Because this is a team and this is a program that is not afraid to play anybody at all on their schedule. Their slate this season is brutal as well. I think we all remember how well Mercyhurst competed in the out-of-conference last season. They came into Youngstown State, lost 24-15. They competed well with Sacramento State. They held Montana State, national champions, to 17 points. A lot of that had to do with Coach Remigio and what he did. Now he is here at Youngstown State, and that's sort of an interesting rematch story with Mercyhurst having a lot of familiarity with what Coach Remigio wants to do, and Coach Remigio having a ton of familiarity with what Mercyhurst goes to do. That's going to be an interesting back and forth battle, and I'm interested to see what the dynamic is this week from the coaching staff, both coaching staffs really, as they prepare to square up against each other in the season opener for the second straight year. So just a quick recap of Mercyhurst season. Last year, they went 5-7. A group that I thought sort of flamed out in NEC play just based on the fact of how difficult of a non-conference schedule they had. You sort of started to see that when Mercyhurst played South Dakota State. They kind of got bumped around and beat up because of how many miles they had traveled, how many different tough opponents they had played, and that somewhat carried over into conference play. Still a phenomenal season. Coach Remigio was awesome. Heading into this season, this is a Mercyhurst team that's being picked 5th in the NEC preseason poll, respectable ranking. The biggest question for the Lakers this season is, can they replace some key production and find consistency at quarterback? Adam Urena last season balled out against YSU. He went 32 of 48 for 311 yards and 2 touchdowns. 311 yards against Youngstown State. That's inexcusable. And I remember last season, I said maybe this is something that we can figure out in the secondary. Maybe that's not something we should be too concerned about, but it ended up being a major issue for YSU. Our pass defense all season long was inconsistent, and it all sort of came together at the end of the season where Yale had a big passing day against us, Southern Illinois, Indiana State had a couple of explosive plays against us. So the pass defense was a major issue for YSU that sort of got exposed early in the season with Adam Urena, but he's gone. That is huge for YSU. And this is really an intriguing story, as now Adam Urena is the team's quarterback coach. I got the privilege of getting to go on an interview with NEC Blitz. He talked about how Urena is taking over as the quarterback's coach. That's an exciting opportunity for him. I'm sort of glad he's not starting this game, because if he was, that changes the complexion of what this game looks like. There's two quarterbacks, two main options right now that are competing for the job. By the time you listen to this episode, they may have named a starter. I would expect the depth chart to come out on Tuesday, so I'm recording on Monday. This is assuming that a starter has not been named, but Alex Javadin returns after seeing action in 7 games last season. He was fair when he played. He was okay. He was solid. He went 24 of 26 passing for 253 yards and a touchdown. He had a 76-yard touchdown pass against Wagner. We'll see. Not so sure, because another quarterback, Nevada transfer Anthony Walter, is also in this competition. He's a former 3-star, so he has that high upside, high ceiling. The issue is he did not play during his 2 seasons at Nevada. Nevada has not been a respectable program. You have to wonder what Walter looks like at the collegiate level, if he's going to be able to start over Javadin, the primary backup for Adam Urena. That's sort of, again, an intriguing dynamic with Adam Urena as the quarterback's coach, leading his backup quarterback from last season and also dealing with a transfer that was a former 3-star prospect. I'm sort of intrigued to see who plays, because that could determine how this game looks for our defense. If they find a guy at quarterback who can sling it around, our defense better be dialed in and clicking on all cylinders, because I can assure you, with some of the skill position talent they have, they're going to punish us down the field with some of the length they have at wide receiver and tight end. And there's a running back that I'm a bit concerned about that can punish us if we're not sound tackling. So if their quarterback is a baller and he's going out there and he's slinging it around, I think that's something we should be concerned about. But the fact that they have not named a starter at this point in the preseason is sort of a red flag to me. I feel like there should have been some sort of separating factor between these two at this point. Very rarely are you going to have a quarterback competition of 2 super talented guys that are duking it out, and they're still fighting at this time in the preseason. That's rare. My best guess is they really don't think they have great quarterback play. They probably have mediocre quarterback play, and they waited this long to name a starter because they're not sure what they're going to get. And again, that's sort of an interesting strategy, because I mean, you would probably want one of these guys to get all the first team reps before the game to get that game prep in, but maybe they're going to split reps. Maybe both of them will play. We'll see what happens when that depth chart comes out. That's going to be very telling, and I would expect that to release on Tuesday. But regardless, what the quarterback looks like is going to determine the dynamic of this game for our defense. If they don't have a quarterback that's effective, I think we can really get after them and disrupt their offensive game plan. The Mercyhurst running game, super interesting. This is one of the biggest storylines, and it's going to be one of my keys of the game later in this episode. Mercyhurst lost its 2 most productive backs in Aaron Rodriguez and Brian Trobel. Trobel was really the big producer last year. He had 983 rushing yards, and then Rodriguez sort of complemented what he did and also had some solid production. Jameer Gamble returns, but the big player that I want to talk about here is Byron Cardwell Jr. He transfers from San Diego State. He's sort of a bruiser. He's a big physical back. He's 6 foot. He's 220 pounds. He had a 400-yard season at Oregon. That previous Power 4 experience sort of concerns me. He's super physical for a week 0 game. This is a tough running back to go against, and this Mercyhurst offensive line is expected to be pretty good. Our defensive line should obviously win most of those battles up front, but if you have a big physical back who has power forward experience. He was effective at San Diego State, played at Oregon, played at Cal. I'm sort of worried about our tackling ability on a guy of this caliber in the first week of the season. He has been consistent in producing, and I'm super curious to see what that looks like at the NEC level. I guess you never know what you're going to get out of some of these transfer additions, but that frame and that size kind of concerns me for a week 0 game because there's going to be missed tackles across multiple different teams across the entire country. We need to be able to limit those tackles and shut down this kid because I am super concerned about him as being a big physical back. And again, getting that penetration for us is going to help, but we need to be able to tackle sound to really generate tackles for loss and negative plays. The passing game for Mercyhurst, despite losing Ryland Davidson, Mercyhurst has some dangerous receivers down the field. Dylan Evans, I think we all remember that name. He absolutely torched us last year. He had 7 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown. He's a lengthy kid. He's 6'3". He had 571 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns last season. He can create a lot of matchup problems down the field. Our corners need to be dialed in and ready to blanket the field because he is a super talented receiver, and we obviously saw what he could do down the field last season against us. And then Evan Van Dyke is another player to watch who can sort of leak down the field and go and get those contested catches. He's 6'2". He had 395 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns last season. If the Lakers with their quarterback are able to connect and get the ball to them down the field, this could make this an interesting game. Our defense is going to have some holes in it as it's a week 0 game. We're trying to figure things out. If our defense is not dialed in and Mercyhurst's quarterback play is good enough where they can get the ball down the field to some of these playmakers, this game could turn interesting quick. I just think with a bruising running back, some length at wide receiver, some dangerous down the field guys, and then on top of that, some length at tight end, that's something we need to be concerned about, and we really need to be dialed in on this Mercyhurst offense. On defense, Mercyhurst really has a lot of experience on defense. Jeff Level returns after recording 80 tackles last season at linebacker. His partner, Jane Allos, had 29 tackles and 3 pass breakups at linebacker as well. He's a preseason all-conference selection. Adonis Marshall is probably the biggest name in the secondary. He had 36 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 4 pass breakups last season. This is a defense that's going to run a 3-4 scheme, I would assume, especially since Bryce Dempsey has some of that continuity. He's been with Coach Remedio before. He takes over as the defensive coordinator, so we should expect to see a similar scheme to what we saw last year, and that scheme gave us a lot of troubles. So we'll have to see what that looks like, how Mike Yursich plans to attack this defense. There should be some familiarity again with these two programs schematically, and I'm sort of intrigued to see how that all shakes out. So let's now get into the keys to the game. First off, I talked about this running back a lot for Mercyhurst. Stop Byron Cardwell. Cardwell is the player who can potentially make this game more physical than expected. I know we're accustomed to saying, it's an NEC team. There's no way they're going to be physical. They just don't have what it takes in the trenches, and I completely understand that. YSU has the advantage in the trenches on the offensive line and the defensive line. YSU should win most of those battles. Byron Cardwell kind of flips that dynamic. He's a big physical back. He has power 4 vision. As he played at Oregon, he was successful at Oregon for a short period of time. Spent some time at Cal, spent some time at San Diego State. He's a bruiser, and that's a tough running back to go up against in the first matchup of the season. We need to be dialed in on him, and we really need to make this offense one-dimensional. If we can shut down this ground game and their quarterback is inconsistent, This is a game that YSU's defense is going to dominate. This is a game that the YSU team as a whole is going to dominate, and I think we could see a much different score than what we saw last season when it was a 24-15 game. Second key to the game here, I have pressure the quarterback. Look, we don't know yet who will be under center for Mercyhurst, and that's something YSU should try to exploit. Put pressure on the quarterback early. Get them in third and long situations and dial up the heat. Come after this kid. Make him uncomfortable and rattle his confidence. It doesn't matter who Mercyhurst has at receiver. If we can rattle this quarterback and disrupt his rhythm and timing with Dylan Evans and some of the other talented receivers that Mercyhurst has, this YSU defense is going to be golden. The third key to the game, don't lose Dylan Evans. Evans was one of our biggest problems last year. He had 95 yards against us in a touchdown. At 6'3", he puts a lot of pressure on our corners to lock in, to be dialed in, and to cover at a high level. YSU needs to know where he is on every passing down. No matter who the quarterback is, we need to blanket him. We need to be dialed in, and we need to be ready. If we're going to send the heat, our corners need to be ready to be on an island, to get good leverage, and make sure that someone else beats us. If we get beat down the field, it cannot be Dylan Evans. Prioritize shutting him down. We know what he did to our defense last year. Let's stop him and see what happens. And then finally, this is an offensive key to the game. Stretch the Mercyhurst defense. Attack the perimeter early. Quick throws to the outside runs, motion. That can force the linebackers to cover more ground. I already talked about they have sort of a good duo in the center of their defense at linebacker. If you can stretch those guys out, we have more speed, but we can really throw a haymaker there late in the game. If we can get this defense moving sideline to sideline with our big offensive line and a quarterback power game, we can punch that middle late in the game and be super successful in all facets of the game. And then special teams, I want to see kickoff coverage and punt coverage take a significant step forward in this game of the season. So the betting line is YSU enters as a 27.5 point favorite. I think that's a fair line. YSU is a super talented team, and I'm super excited to see how this game plays out. So, again, this is a game that YSU should control. We have the advantage. We know what the standard is and the expectations here are at Youngstown State. This YSU team needs to be dialed in on their assignment, on their game plan. They can't let the external pressure get to their heads. If they do that, if they just focus on the field, this should be a successful game. We got to shut down their skill position talent on offense, and our offense needs to stretch this Mercyhurst defense. If we do that, this is going to be a dominant YSU victory, and it's going to be a great start to the season, and it's going to give us momentum heading into a Week 2 showdown with Kentucky. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Penguin Nation Fans Podcast. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure to leave the show a 5-star review and continue to support the podcast on social media. For now, I'm Gino Leone, and as always, go Gwins.